I am live with Danny Woods, and we're going to chat about how to be a HR strategist. And we're going to get started in just a second. I'm going to give Danny a quick introduction. And one of the interesting things about today is that I'd actually approached Danny about doing a podcast episode. And we decided, well, why not just record this episode live and see how things go? And so you're all going to kind of be behind the scenes about how these things get made. So I'm here with Danny Woods. She's an experienced people strategist and HR leader, and she's built a career. She had a career building organizations with data, elevating their trust with HR, and she's led workforce analytics and people operations at companies navigating growth, change, and private equity M&A, and we're going to dive into all of those topics today. Danny, do you have anything else you would like the audience to know about you?
Ooh, anything else? You probably know me. I do a lot of bold HR technology takes on LinkedIn. I have a deep Workday background, but in addition to that, I actually started in HR. So I started as an HR assistant and ended up working my way up into being a global director at the age 27. So I've learned a lot of different things throughout my career, and I'm excited to share that with you guys today.
Awesome. Well, I don't know if this is like the most burning topic in HR, but it's definitely a thing that I want to talk about. And it's how do you build confidence with your data and executives? So HR data, how do you build that confidence with executives?
I like to think of it as like, imagine you're walking into an FBI interrogation room, right? Like I've only been in a couple of them, so I can't speak to all of them. But typically where things start to go wrong is they start to notice something comes out, like maybe there's a lie, and then immediately trust is gone. So not that these rooms are just like in interrogations, which sometimes they are, but it's kind of similar to that, right? It's as soon as someone realizes you pull in, a report that doesn't make sense or a number and they're questioning it, they're immediately going to discredit you. And then what humans do is we anchor to that first red flag. So anything else that we have to say after that, they completely ignore. So when I think about actually instilling trust is I normally start with like a first touch point. Whether that's a number that I know right away that's accurate, and then I'll build off of that. And that way you're not asking them to trust your data, but you're slowly proving it. And then if you don't have it correct, like you're honest with it and you're not hiding it as well.
I like that starting with a initial data point. To be honest, I'd never thought of it that way because I think probably one of the biggest reasons people just in general, that's like the human nature portion of it, don't trust data is when it's contrarian. Like if it like goes against what they already know. So you kind of have to feed them a little bit of that initial trust building exercise.
And you can go with numbers that, like, say it's like just head count. Like you can go with something that they're already familiar with, because if they remember, oh no, you reported 900 yesterday, now you're reporting this number, why is that off? That's when you're like, oh, maybe like contractors aren't pulled in, or like you actually have an example to give to them right away.
Yeah. So kind of along those lines, so you're communicating one piece of information that you know is correct. Like is trust in data, is it entirely a communication strategy, or is there like what foundational stuff? Is there foundational stuff in there too?
I think it's both of them. Like I think it's being the expert in the room and having the credibility already established, but when you're new on, you don't always have that right away. So it's kind of ramping up to that. But no, I mean, at the end of the day, you have to be able to communicate with them. And it's also about what they believe. So let's just say we're going to go give a headcount report to someone and they think that they're going to get trailing versus annualized. And you don't make it very clear. Now they're looking at the numbers and they're like, wait a minute, no, I want trailing. This report's wrong. The system's broken. Like it's the immediate domino effect that it's not correct. So I think it's also learning how to navigate that pretty fast on what they expect to see. That way you can set the boundaries right away.
Have you gotten hit with one of those situations where somebody didn't trust it and you were, I don't know, either communicating it wrong or you had bad data? Like, do you have an example of that for you?
Yeah, all the time. So, I mean,
So
it
it's all the
has
time.
like I've implemented when I went to go implement, HR Bench, for example, in the first place. It's brand new. I had to get people on board with it. So I have had situations where I genuinely feel like a tiger's like chasing me internally when I get hit with something, because I could be in the middle of a meeting and I get questioned. And I think we take it personal. And it's not about like your credibility isn't based off of really just you not having it correct. It comes down to your ability to recover from the scenario. So if you go into it and you realize that the information is bad, then it's immediately anticipate better questions next time, which you're never going to be able to anticipate every single person's question, but you can prep answers of how you're going to be challenged and understand how the information is being pulled, which can be difficult if you're not in the weeds of it. But at the end of the day, they expect recovery over perfection, and they understand that systems do have limitations. But what they're really watching for is kind of whether you're going to like crumble under pressure, or if you're just going to own up to it and fix it moving forward. Yeah, it happens all the time.
It's just a little bit of a game.
It's totally
I hope it's not just a game.
No.
Cat and mouse there. But
it depends on how much you need buy-in pretty fast. So if someone is already, if they have came in and they're a new leader and they've assumed that your data isn't accurate, because like speaking of private equity, if we're handling system consolidations and implementations right away, there's a ramp up period before things start to look accurate. So teams already think that it's not correct, the information, but you gotta reteach them over time. So like what I did is I created a whole new report catalog with like new naming conventions, so people knew right away what was new and what wasn't. And you'd be amazed how fast just a couple times of like consistency actually showed them, hey, this is what you want.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about that ramp up period. So like you talked about, like if you have system integrations or you're bringing in new tools or things, like what do you mean by the ramp up period of, I'm guessing, data that's coming through until it gets cleaned?
Accurate data is a byproduct to your system health. So when I think about the actual like system as a whole and the different phases of different frameworks and the security and the business process flows and ingestion, and then how we output, which is reporting and analytics typically. When I have walked into companies that aren't as mature, I have to fix this front half before I can fix the back half, and before that's going to be accurate. It's literally taken a year before, because depending on your system and the actual health of it. And what I mean by that is if you realize you got to build out 70 integrations and you have to redo all of your modules, you're looking, even with a leaner team of people, you're looking at a 16-month period when you're dealing with consolidations from multiple systems. And then if you're acquiring companies on top of that, and then you're establishing brand new guidelines and governance behind the scenes, it does take a while. That's why I think it's fascinating, because when I've worked in private equity, I've also seen that it takes way longer to redo a system versus the other day I heard someone implemented Workday within 5 days. And I was like, I actually don't know how that's possible. But anyone that's listening to this, please tell me how that is, because I'm genuinely so fascinating, because I've just handled so many complex, outdated systems that had to get redone in Workday before.
Interesting. So you talked about 70 integrations and stuff that has to get integrated. How do you think about if you've got your current set of stack and redoing integrations there versus bringing something external in, and maybe even looking at it as in any way you want to look at that?
We've done both, in the past. So we've had tools that, depending on, we would outweigh, does it make sense to put everything into a different platform and have everything integrate out of that? And then same with reporting and analytics. Then do we have it come out of the data warehouse? We would look at that. But then direct connections with the system, some of it is, if you want your benefits provider to get information over them really fast from the single source of truth, you might just want to hook it up to your human capital system. So where I've seen us go into the more of that other stack is the Salesforces of the world, the different HubSpot, all of our other tools, and then we would integrate our human capital system into that. But anything else that is that we need right away, like an ATS and things like that, we would do out of our human capital system.
Gotcha. Okay, I want to take us a little bit out of the technical weeds here of systems and back.
I mean, we
to
could
a
talk
little
all
bit
day
more.
about integrations. Just
You know, I spent time in not HR operations, but marketing operations, dealing with tools all the time, and I could get into the weeds of that. And so I don't know if building confidence in, yes, there is a technical component to building confidence in HR data for execs, but I want to get back to a little bit of the communication strategy there of the managing up, and really, what are the data points that you see across that non-HR folks want to see about happening with people data that people should start thinking about communicating?
Yeah. So I remember when I was putting together a board deck, I saw one comment on it, and we had given screenshots of turnover, different percentages, our hire count, terminations. And one person just commented, "So how does this impact revenue?" And it was actually really spot on, because that's actually the real filter that we do use. And I think that non-HR, right, they look at turnover, but what they're really doing is they're scanning for risks. And so does HR. But we're looking at like what can we break, right? So the first thing that I think about is like the critical turnover. So if you lose a salesperson, what does that mean for the business? You're not just losing headcount, but what does that mean for your current customers and revenue? And then the second is probably your headcount versus the actual forecast. So we would compare like our current state or our hiring plan compared to like what the projections are. Because if finance is saying, I want 12% growth, and we don't actually have the individuals to cover that, the gap becomes very apparent. So I'd see the consistent theme of that over and over. And then third, I would say like the workforce cost as a percentage of the actual revenue. And the reason I say this is really important is because it allows us to start reviewing trends and where we need to go, and also warning signs. For example, one company, we saw the numbers creep up a little bit too much, and they were disproportional, and it resulted in a RIF. So it really comes down to risk, readiness, and cost. And that's why they care so much about turnover being accurate, is because we're going to a stage where it's not about just spitting out the number, but it's the story about it and what is going to happen in the future if we don't do anything about these patterns now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think one of the biggest things, like just tying to revenue, like in business impact, is in just thinking in that lens. And it's such a shift, I think, because I mean, a lot of times, even in marketing, like we see that, and just making that particular shift. So I'm going to give you a rapid fire question here. So people, everybody that's joining, we are live with Danny Woods. If you've just trickled in, and rapid fire question. So you're in a PE-backed company and you've just inherited messy data. What's your first move?
Ooh, I mean, it's a guarantee you're going to get some messy data in there.
Okay, so that always exists.
I would say the first thing I would look at, let's just say we're going to look at a report. I would look at the different gaps of different things that aren't pulling in. Let's just say that your report is accurate. So if we're finding out, also the patterns of what do we want to report off of, and then what decisions do we want to make, is how I typically start off. Because you can look at it and you're like, I don't even know where to start. But the questions that are going to come out of this is the compliance side of it. And then you're going to take a look at like, what are we doing with all the information in the system in the first place? And there are bare-bone things that you need, which is like compensation. So your full compensation structure, not all of it needs to be in your system of record. But if you're going to continually report off of, benefits, costs to employees, you've got to have a mechanism to have that in place in the first place. So that's how I really determined how to build the structure to be able to get the data that I wanted in the first place. And a lot of it came from the worker and their compensation at first. It was like the most important part to get right.
Yeah. I like what you said about decide what decisions you want to make. Like, as kind of thinking about the end goal first. So the next thing I kind of wanted to dive into as far as the topic goes is we wanted to get Danny's crystal ball of the future. Oh, and what does the future of HR analytics and operations look like, according to Danny?
Yeah, I mean, because everyone has an opinion on this one. So when I think about when I think about like what HR operations used to look like to me is I was printing out benefit elections. I was helping people enroll. I was doing manual offer letters. And that's why I do not take for granted software these days, but employment verifications. All those manual tasks, I can see that going away. However, like my accountant said it very perfectly in the world of AI too, and how we kind of think about using it, is it's here to do our job, to help us with it. It's here to accelerate it. It's to do the parts that we don't want to do. But what it doesn't take away from is the face of us and being with employees and talking face to face with individuals and working with them and being able to predict things ahead of time and look at the anomalies that AI is not able to catch right now. So I see it as those more manual tasks. Are they going to go away? Absolutely. They're already starting to go away. But you're going to see more of the storytellers, the system architects and HR operations. So like instead of, hey, do this employment verification, do this task, how about redesign it, work with technology? And I could also almost see like HR operations and HR technology more and more coming together at companies, because we're already seeing that in private equity, and that's been a thing. So they're not siloed anymore, as they're really becoming integrated into actual, technology. And maybe even technology is redefined too, of where it's going to be processes and the policies and then the technology to support it.
How is that stuff coming together in private equity right now?
I'm seeing more and more of the HR operations and HR technology report into the same leader. And so it's like one vision roadmap.
What leader are they typically reporting into? Is it vary across, or?
I'm seeing it. I mean, I've seen it vary from like, you can have total rewards leaders see it, operations. If you have, a vice president of human resources, that's the role, or the vice president of operations and technology. And that's more of like your VP of HR. And then you have your total rewards team and your HR business partners, and you have recruiting as well. And then I've also seen the teams, depending on how flat the org is, report right into the CHRO. I personally have in my past probably spent more time reporting into executives than not in technology. So if it's a technology leader, then they may just start overseeing operations and report directly to the CHRO.
Interesting. Okay. So kind of given that lens of what you're thinking for the future, how do you see like specific roles evolving? So like actual HR roles evolving, probably particularly in ops and HR analysts.
So I think those manual tasks that they're already doing, that's gonna go away, and they're gonna start working on the forecasting. They may look into more of like dynamic job catalogs and like how our positions continually evolved, and do more of like maybe even workforce planning integrated with it. So I think it's a combination of also higher level systems thinking that all of them are going to have, and risks radar with it too, of like, hey, we're starting to see this in the business. What is the actual impact of it? Because like we said, we're tying things to revenue. So if we're starting to see people leave, what does that actually mean for us, and what are we going to do about it? So I actually think they're going to have a lot more time like freed up, even HRS analysts. So I have seen now, they have platforms with AI tools to actually help Workday admins. So things that used to take so much design and configuration, if we now have the tools to be able to tell us exactly this is how it's configured, you're going to see more of like the senior analysts that can handle change management, and they can build more because now they have a tool that's actually helping them. So it's just I'm going to see more, I think, like complex projects that they're going to start spearheading. So I think everyone's going to kind of level up too.
Yeah. That's what I would imagine. Do you have any specific AI use cases or agents that you've either built or seen built that would be helpful for people listening in?
I think right away, something that helps answer basic questions is a no-brainer. It's going to help save time, something that's going to track the different patterns that you're seeing. That way you can fix processes to re-engineer them and then have less questions from them. I think we're gonna start to see more and more of them. Like I've done chatbots, and that's helped significantly. And especially with like the change management, if it's very easy, because people live in ChatGPT. So for them to use a chatbot, that's very simple.
Yeah, I would imagine one that's probably super pertinent is a chatbot for open enrollment during that period. And I would imagine that really helps field a lot of good questions or a lot of questions, or at
Yeah,
least
and they've
direct you
had
to the
those
right place.
tools for years. I
Yeah.
haven't seen it where it's, I mean, I'm sure companies have the actual chatbot in the open enrollment screen, but like the decision tools, they've had those for years.
Yeah.
But you've got to click and then you've got to go to another portal to be able to see it. And who's doing that when they don't have an attention span?
Yeah. Yeah, all of our attention spans have shortened.
Speaking of attention span, this is now over. No.
Just the abrupt cut of this. But because we're not going to do that, I'm going to toss another rapid fire question. So
Okay.
you're an HR leader and your company was just acquired by, could be private equity, another company. Like, what are the less common questions that you think HR leaders should be asking in that situation?
Yeah, so especially on the system side, I have seen this where everything was driven off one simple question. And that's, what day are they coming over into our payroll and benefits system? And that is going to drive so many downstream workflows. So I think that's not even answered right away. I mean, some, depending on the deal, they have it structured so you grandfather them in.
Yeah.
But it's not always apparent to HR professionals, but your tech professional is asking you, because that's system consolidations and that's change management. You got to know those right away. And then you have the job catalog alignment. So we do ask like the questions of like, hey, are they going to come into our system? Are we going to mirror up their positions? What is it going to look like? And especially in the world of AI and the fact that everything is evolving so fast, I think it's going to be this is what we see the company doing. This is how we're going to put them in seat right away, versus maybe putting them where they were at and then waiting some time and then reshaping it. So I think it's going to be a little bit more dynamic. And then promises during due diligence. This is a really big one, because sometimes HR will say, yes, you're going to get this retention bonus, or yes, you're going to get your full bonus grandfathered in. And that's not always how it works. And then we lose individuals, unfortunately, during M&A, and we have no background knowledge on any promises made. So that's one that you need to get right away. And then like I would start asking questions about like their components, like where are you operating in? How many different comp plans are we looking at? Do we have expats? Where are the contracts? Those don't show up right away. And you'd be amazed that might seem like, no, you need to have it right away and obvious, and it is not.
Those are all really good. So we will have those questions for everybody in a follow-up if you want to have those, if you're getting ready to go through an M&A process. So we've had quite a bit of chat here. I want to kind of just let you summarize kind of some of the stuff that we've talked about here about like, what should an HR leader, an HR professional take away today that they could do tactically now that would be like maybe one or two things in order to be a more strategic partner to the business, like thinking more like the business thinks overall?
I would say no data, no decisions. And if you can remember that, you've got to think beyond systems. You've got to think about the people, costs, and innovation moving forward. And what I mean by that is like, let's just say the old question was, hey, like, can we start business up in Asia, for example? And instead of asking that legal entity question, where I think that we're going to start seeing it is, here's like the actual hidden cost to doing that. Here's the talent risk that we have. Here's the compliant risk that we may not have priced in. So you're one step ahead. You're talking about how you can actually accelerate an M&A deal. What are going to be the trade-offs that don't double the cost? And that is when I think HR really becomes indispensable, is when you're able to map the real cost to any business moves, whether that's reporting and analytics or just like the day-to-day decisions that happen.
That's good. And that's great little tidbit. No data, no decisions.
No data, no decisions.
To let that go. Do you have any other advice for HR professionals who are kind of early in their career and they're being asked to help either compile decks for a QBR or help with the reporting and data that people are going to use, kind of up the organization?
I would say find something you're really good at. Like
Okay.
point blank. You want to get paid for something, you got to have the expertise immediately to do it, right? And you don't have to listen to other people that are going to tell you that it's going to take 10 years to do that. If I would have listened to them, I think I would still be a senior analyst and I would have never made it to where I did. But with that there's a lot of challenges and you are going to continually be, you're going to be chef to the ground and you're going to have to figure it out and you're going to have to get back up. But what I really found is credibly, it actually comes from filling the rooms and with your knowledge and your power. However, it's not always with words. And I would get told at first when I was being coached, I need to sit on my hands. And I would be in meetings, so I have the answer to that. Nope, I know exactly what that is. This isn't that hard. Can we just wrap this up? That'd be old Danny. And now it's more of remaining silent and listening to them. Because at the end of the day, it's better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak and remove all doubt. And that was the biggest thing, is I had to figure that out the very, very hard way. And now I tell clients to this day, if you ever want to figure out who actually probably is the most knowledgeable and powerful person at the table, they are not sitting at the head of the table. They are probably the one in the corner that is a little bit more quiet, that is paying attention to what everyone else has to say. And they say one sentence and everyone listens.
Yeah, that is true. And the further you get along in your career, the more you see a lot of that happen. And I too have had the sit on your hands, the need to sit on your hands.
Now I just fold them. I'll fold them in meetings. I won't sit on my hands, and make it obvious. But I'm just sitting there super impatient. But you'd never be able to know.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Danny, thank you so much for joining us today and getting us through these tips. I jotted down quite a few. So, running through does it impact revenue? What decisions do you want to make when thinking about your data? Looking at promises during due diligence and no data, no decision. All great stuff and great takeaways for the audience. Is there anything else you'd like to leave the audience with? Where would you like the audience to connect with you? Just hit my mic.
Yeah. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I love doing coffee chats and getting to know each one of you. And thank you all for tuning into us today.
Yeah, and we're with HR Bench. If you ever want to talk to us, feel free to click the link and you can join us and chat with our team. Thank you, Danny, and thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed the first ever live stream session with HR Bench, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.